Imagine a future where, I don't know, the limits of our biology are just optional. Aging, maybe it's curable. Thinking faster, sure, just augment your brain. Human potential, almost boundless. And this isn't just science fiction anymore, right? It's the core idea behind a movement that's really picking up steam globally, transhumanism. So today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, into transhumanism. Our mission, as always, is to dig into the sources you shared, pull out the key insights, look at the big promises, but also the real dangers, and ask those huge questions about what it actually means to be human. So yeah, the big question right off the bat, is this our next evolutionary step, or are we kind of risking our humanity here?
It's pretty striking how fast these ideas, which seemed purely theoretical not long ago, are becoming, actual scientific goals.
Mm-hmm.
It really forces us to confront who we are, doesn't it? Pushing all those boundaries we thought were fixed.
Okay, so let's get specific. You mentioned Max Moore. For people familiar with his work, he gave a pretty foundational definition. What was that again?
Right. Moore defined it as a class of philosophies of life that seek the continuation and acceleration of the evolution of intelligent life beyond its currently human form and human limitations by means of science and technology, guided by life-promoting principles and values. It's quite a mouthful.
Yeah, a bit dense. So in simpler terms, what's the core goal?
Well, the key thing is, it's not just about fixing things like curing diseases or living a bit longer. It's really about seeing our biological limitations. How long we live, how smart we are, even our emotions, seeing those not as fixed realities, but as almost like design flaws.
Design flaws?
Yeah, flaws that technology can potentially fix or upgrade.
Yeah.
It basically shifts human evolution from something passive, something that just happens to us, to an active engineering project. And the ultimate goal for many transhumanists is to become posthuman.
Posthuman. Okay, what does that look like?
A being with abilities far, far beyond current human limits. Think. Drastically longer lifespans, superintelligence, maybe even new senses or ways of communicating.
So not just a slightly improved human, but something fundamentally different, re-engineered.
Exactly.
Which naturally brings up those big questions for you listening. Is this even possible? Can we really live forever, upload our minds, and maybe more importantly, even if we can, should we?
It definitely takes that human drive for self-improvement, for survival, and pushes it to its absolute technological extreme. It's a very different path to transcendence than, say, traditional spiritual ones.
Right. And this whole idea, this post-human vision, it didn't just pop up yesterday. It has a history, right?
Oh, absolutely. The term transhumanism itself actually goes back to the biologist Julian Huxley in 1957.
Huxley, okay.
But the movement, as we sort of recognize it today,
Yeah.
it really started to form in the late 20th century. Thinkers like FM 2030, who was quite a character, and Max Moore, who we mentioned, they really started laying the philosophical groundwork.
And now, it's not just philosophers talking about it anymore, is it?
Not at all. That's what's crucial. This isn't some fringe academic idea anymore. It's gaining serious traction, serious backing. Well, when you look at the big tech giants, like Google, their Calico Labs is explicitly working on longevity, tackling aging. Amazon is pouring money into AI and robotics. These aren't labeled transhumanist projects necessarily, but they're building the foundational tech.
Okay, so the building blocks.
Exactly. And then you have government agencies like DARPA in the U.S. They're actively funding research into things like advanced brain-computer interfaces, enhancing soldier capabilities, blurring that line between human and machine.
Wow, even DARPA.
And interestingly, you even see some spiritual leaders engaging with these ideas, seeing it as a potential technological path towards a kind of transcendence.
That's a really wide range of support. And, I think I initially thought of transhumanism mostly in terms of, like, bionic arms or living longer. But you're saying it goes deeper into our actual genes and maybe even how we behave.
Oh, much deeper. A core part of the ambition is altering not just our bodies, but our genotype, our fundamental genetic code, and our phenotype.
Phenotype. Remind me.
That's basically everything observable about us, our physical traits, our behaviors, even our psychological tendencies. So transhumanism isn't just about physical upgrades. It's potentially about engineering intelligence, or maybe influencing things like personality or even some spectrum like sexual orientation through genetic or neurotech means.
Right, changing the blueprint and how it plays out.
Exactly. Altering the genotype could mean eliminating hereditary diseases before birth, maybe even selecting for certain traits. Phenotype alteration might involve tweaking gene expression later in life, or using neurotech to change psychological patterns, reshaping who you are right now.
Okay. That immediately throws up a huge red flag. Ethically speaking, is it okay to redesign ourselves, or maybe our kids, on that level?
Precisely.
And the really tricky part, who gets to decide what's better? Is it the parents? The government? What if better in one culture is seen as terrible in another? You could end up with, wow, a really divided society based on genetic choices.
That who decides question is absolutely central. It touches on autonomy, consent, what human flourishing even means when you can technologically manipulate it.
So, yeah, huge ethical minefield. Which brings us to the big debate. The arguments for and against transhumanism. Let's start with the pro side.
Okay, well, you have prominent figures like Ray Kurzweil, the futurist. He argues that this isn't just some crazy idea, it's the next logical step in evolution.
Yeah.
Humans have always used tools to overcome limitations, and this is just the ultimate extension of that.
And Kurzweil has that famous prediction, right? The singularity.
Yes, the singularity. He predicts that around 2045, artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence, leading to this runaway technological growth. And his view is that humans will need to merge with AI, basically, to keep pace. Uploading consciousness, integrating with machines.
Merging with machines, okay.
And the proponents, they genuinely believe this technological leap could solve our biggest problems. Think about it. Eradicating diseases like cancer, ending poverty through abundance, maybe even conquering death itself.
That's the ultimate promise, isn't it? Solving death.
For some, yes. The Cryonics Institute, for example, they talk about this enhanced future as, quote, the beginning of the adulthood of humanity. They paint this picture of lives free from biological decay, longer, healthier, happier.
The adulthood of humanity, that's quite a phrase.
It frames our current state as sort of immature, limited.
Okay, but there's obviously a strong against side, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Philosopher Francis Fukuyama famously called transhumanism the world's most dangerous idea.
Why dangerous?
He worries that fundamentally altering human nature could wreck our concepts of human dignity and equality, which underpin democracy. He fears it could lead to a new high-tech form of eugenics, where society values certain engineered traits over others.
That ties into the inequality fear, right?
Exactly. A huge concern is that only the rich could afford these radical enhancements. Imagine a future split between genetically enhanced superhumans and everyone else. That gap could be unbridgeable.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
And then there's the argument about meaning. Bill McKibben wrote a book called Enough, arguing that our limitations actually give our lives meaning. Yeah. Facing challenges, making choices within constraints. That's what makes life rich. He points to groups like the Amish, who deliberately limit technology to preserve their way of life.
So removing limits might actually make life less meaningful.
That's the fear. If everything is possible, do choices still matter in the same way? And beyond meaning, there's the fear of losing our very humanity.
What does that mean, though, losing our humanity?
Well, the Transhumanist FAQ actually addresses this. It says the important thing is not to be human, but to be humane. But the critics worry. If we engineer away struggle, vulnerability, maybe even negative emotions, could we become less compassionate, less empathetic, less humane?
Could we enhance ourselves into something colder, less connected?
That's the profound fear. What defines us, if not, at least partly, our shared biology, our shared vulnerabilities.
Okay, so we've got these big philosophical debates, but let's bring it down to earth. Where are we now in 2025? Is any of this actually happening?
Oh, definitely. It's not just theory anymore. We're seeing concrete steps. Take Neuralink, Elon Musk's company.
Right, the brain chips.
Exactly. In 2025, they started human trials for their brain-computer interfaces. Right now, it's about allowing people with paralysis to control devices with their thoughts.
Which is amazing, obviously.
Incredible. But the future potential they talk about is huge. Cognitive enhancement, maybe direct mind-to-mind communication, even linking our brains directly to the internet.
Mind-blowing. And what about the genetic side?
CRISPR gene editing technology is already being used. It's showing promise in treating genetic diseases, potentially eliminating hereditary conditions entirely. That's a clear step towards what some would call engineering better humans.
Fixing those design flaws you mentioned earlier.
Precisely. And this isn't just a Silicon Valley thing anymore. The movement's going global. There was a major transvision conference held in Africa recently showing its expanding influence.
So the tech is moving fast. But what about those risks we talked about? Are they immediate concerns?
Very immediate. The inequality issue. It's not some distant sci-fi problem. We already see massive disparities in access to basic healthcare and education. Now imagine adding radical biological enhancement to that mix. The gap could become a chasm.
A biological caste system almost.
That's the fear. And beyond inequality, there's the control issue. Philosopher Nick Bostrom has written extensively about the potential dangers of superintelligent AI that could surpass human control and pose, well, existential risks. Are we ready for that kind of power?
Are we opening Pandora's box?
That's the question hanging over all of this. Are we truly prepared for the consequences, intended or unintended?
You have to balance that against the potential good, right?
Absolutely. You have to acknowledge the immense promise. Imagine a world without cancer, without Alzheimer's. Imagine everyone living much longer, healthier lives with sharper minds. Transhumanists genuinely believe they can drastically reduce suffering, allow everyone to live their best life, free from biological constraints.
It's incredibly compelling.
And they justify the intervention. That transhumanist FAQ, again, it makes the point. It is often right to tamper with nature. Manipulating nature is an important part of what civilization and human intelligence is all about. We've been doing it since the invention of the wheel.
So tampering is just human nature, amplified by technology.
From their perspective, yes. It's not unnatural. It's the next stage of our intelligence expressing itself.
Okay, powerful argument. But there's always a but, isn't there?
Always. The critical catch is responsibility. For this future to be genuinely good, not just powerful, the tech needs to be developed ethically. And crucially, it needs to be accessible, universally accessible.
Otherwise, you get that two-tiered society we talked about.
Exactly. Without ethical guardrails and equitable access, you risk creating that profound divide between the enhanced and the unenhanced. A really dystopian outcome.
So it's not just one single idea, this transhumanism thing.
No, not at all. It's important to understand. It's a diverse movement.
Yeah.
There are different currents within it. You have things like extropy, which is very focused on perpetual progress,
right,
overcoming all limits, infinite expansion.
Okay.
But you also have democratic transhumanism, which puts a strong emphasis on fairness, social justice, and ensuring these powerful technologies benefit everyone, not just an elite few. They focus heavily on accessibility and mitigating risks. So it's an evolving worldview, not a monolithic doctrine.
Which brings it all back to us, to you listening. We're standing at this crossroads. What kind of future do you want?
Yeah, do we want to fundamentally change what it means to be human, to transcend our biology?
Or are there parts of our current humanity, maybe even our flaws, our vulnerabilities, that are essential that we need to protect? Should people have the absolute right to enhance themselves however they want? Or do we need limits?
These aren't easy questions. There are no simple answers.
Definitely not. This whole debate, it really challenges everything we think we know about ourselves. And your engagement, your thinking about this stuff, it really matters in figuring out where we go from here. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating and maybe a little bit scary world of transhumanism. As this tech keeps blurring the lines between us and machines, maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. What parts of being human, the enduring parts, must we absolutely fight to protect, no matter how powerful our tools become? Keep thinking, keep asking questions. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.